Almost 30 years ago, Magic the Gathering was released to the world, changing the old trading card paradigm in a profound way that nobody, not even Richard Garfield, its creator, could have imagined. However, it did not only reignite the trading card and board game industry by existing, it also created a new and very interesting flip in the global economy for lots of people, also developing its own sub-economy with specific and unique rules, strategy, statistics, science, and social elements. All of them mixed together to create the Powerpuff Girls, a different perspective to what lots of people think to be just a game. Let's uncover Magic the Gathering's shadow market, how it works, and how important it really is. Hit it! So, what is Magic the Gathering? Magic the Gathering was released in August 1993. Magic the Gathering appeared on the market as the first trading card game. These types of games are based on two different precepts that are tightly joined together: the rules to play the game by itself and the value of each card, both inside the game's mechanic and inside the world's economy, as a trading and collectible item. Most games up until that point met just the first criteria of the description, meaning you just play the game and the rules were inside the game, similar to, when you buy a normal board game or a card game. And the world-famous collectible cards, such as baseball cards, met the other half, so you just bought them to collect, maybe trade, and, to have the entire collection, maybe sell them later down the line, something like that. However, Magic, since its very beginning, was the combination of both. In fact, Magic the Gathering was the first game to be acknowledged as a modern trading card game. So from the very beginning, Wizards of the Coast was putting lots of effort in selling Magic the Gathering as a game, where the appeal resided on choosing the best cards, building the best deck, and winning over all your opponents to be the very best, like no one ever was. In order to do this, you have to buy boosters or boxes of boosters, which as of today still have a random selection of cards from its dedicated set. Pick the best ones for you to try and trade the other cards with other people and try to get the best ones. You could also buy specific cards with a variable price among vendors, which could be individuals or stores that also sell boosters and boxes. They could also sell you cards individually. Although Richard Garfield was more focused on trading rather than buying, when Wizards of the Coast commissioned him to make the game, after the game started to, take off, the buy, sell, trade meta mechanics were always present on Magic since its very beginning, something anyone can see in the Duelist, a magazine created by Wizards of the Coast that showcased products, mechanics, art, and ideas around the Magic the Gathering universe. Magazines before the internet. Here we can see a display of elements around the concept of buy, sell, trade, even with long pages just displaying prices and how the market was flowing in terms of reprints. Alpha, beta, all the versions that we nowadays call sets were introduced in that magazine. In case that you want to read the Duelist, you can check the links in the info box below, because someone graciously has scanned and uploaded all of them. We totally recommend it so that you can fully understand how Magic the Gathering has evolved through time. However, Magic is not just another set of collectible cards as those already mentioned baseball cards. In fact, Magic the Gathering as of 2023 is a still evolving game with new mechanics and types of cards being released each year, or even multiple times a year, with each new set, commander deck, special set, and all the stuff that Wizards releases nowadays, creating a bigger and more complex system, both in-game and in the metagame. In fact, a huge part of the market side value of the cards depends on the real playability of each single card. So the better the card, the better the price. Technically. There are of course multiple factors to increase or decrease a card's price due to its playability. For example, Magic the Gathering is well versed on tournaments, and the prices for the official ones created by Wizards of the Coast tend to be really high. For example, the Pro Tour 2023 has a 30k price for the winner. Winning with a specific deck usually makes a difference in its singles values. Why? Because everyone wants to play that deck, and everyone thinks that that deck is the, very next best thing, since, well, someone won with it. And even the decks from people that don't win the tournament become relevant. So every card that makes an appearance in these tournaments sees their values change somehow. Sometimes for the positive, because, well, the deck was functional, sometimes for the negative, because the deck didn't work at all. This creates a shift in public opinion towards the value of cards, right? It is basically the same logic as why money has value. It's a matter of faith. We believe that money has value because we believe in it. So, following this logic, we believe that a card is more valuable because we believe in it. It may be because we think that it's a very good card, because we like it, because it's scarce, So now, we will focus on how the shadow market works. So, let's say you have a card that you want to sell, or you are looking for a specific card to buy. Where do you go? Where do you ask? Through time, this process has changed quite a lot. On Magic the Gathering's first years, it was a matter of talking with some friends, acquaintances, shop owners, and discuss a price. Of course, as the market was still in process and growing, and the game wasn't as famous as it is today, prices did vary a lot from shop to shop, person to person, or even region to region. On the Duelist number 2 from 1996, there is a pretty interesting article about this situation, talking precisely about this game of prices within Magic the Gathering depending on regions, stores, and individuals. That article kinda went savage at some point, saying that if you don't like the prices imposed by a store, just don't buy the cards and don't play the game. And it was signed by Wizards of the Coast. That should be very familiar, because that's a very similar answer to the one we got when people started to complain about the massive amounts of product being produced nowadays. And the answer was, well, you don't have to buy everything. So, all habits die hard, but let's talk about it in just a moment. Back to the variability of prices throughout the years, and after dealing with huge cases of speculation, the market got some standards almost naturally, and prices more or less settled on an average around the world, or at least in the USA and Europe. That is, taking into consideration that these two markets are linked but separated in many ways, as their prices are different when compared. The internet was decisive in this matter, democratizing the access to prices and understanding if someone is trying to scam you or selling you for a fair price. The highway of information actually worked for what it was intended to be. Websites like Card Market or TCG Player are really, really huge right now, allowing people to buy from all over the world with a single click, as well as selling as an individual or a shop owner. In fact, most shops that normally sold their cards like any other item of their stock are now only selling through those online market platforms, managing their stock through there, and of course, benefiting from a backup in case of any problem or collateral situation during the transaction. In places like Card Market or TCG Player, any person or business can be registered to buy or sell cards. So if you are an individual with lots of personal stock, you can make your own online profile through there and earn money selling that stock. In fact, lots of people have a side business, or even their main income is from buying and selling Magic the Gathering cards, another trading card game. What seemed to be just a hobby or just another merch to sell is now a proper way to earn a wage. Not only selling the products you can obtain through wholesale, but also through small tournaments, hosting weekly duels, and the most important part, selling singles from wholesale you have opened and assessed as pricier than the random box with unknown content. Although this can be turned upside down overnight, as you can imagine. As a matter of fact, the prices of the sealed boxes out of time vary depending on what cards you can get, so that also affects the prices of the boxes themselves. So how is a card valued with a precise number, or at least a range of prices? Because, as you can already imagine, playability is not the only factor that influences the market value of a Magic the Gathering card. There are multiple factors that can be cataloged into 3 branches: rarity inside the game, rarity outside the game, and outer factors. On the first branch, we have a set division of cards according to the number of prints that said card has, determined by Wizards of the Coast themselves. It tends to be related to the in-game value that that single has. So cards are divided into these categories: common, uncommon, rare, and mythic. These categories are related to the importance said card has inside the game mechanics. In other words, how it affects any given game or duel. So the better the in-game effect of the card, the higher its price on the shadow market. Now, the rarity of the card is also determined by Wizards of the Coast based on how they perceive the power of the card. However, that is not necessarily 100% accurate, as sometimes Wizards will determine that a mythic card is mythic and therefore should be very scarce, and cards with, lesser rarity are actually more useful and better into the game or meta that people have developed. This is very funny if you consider that, according to Wizards, they develop sets 2 years in advance, because they are working always 2 years in advance. So everything that is released nowadays has been developed and tested 2 years ago, technically. Now, the rarity outside the game adds another side to its calculus. When a card is said by Wizards of the Coast to have a certain number of prints, the lower the number of prints, the higher the price in the shadow market. So this is the same with any other collectible or any other good. If it's scarce and it's difficult to get, the more expensive it becomes. And sometimes, if you have the multiplier of mythos or history or just branding on top of it, the more expensive it gets. Just ask Supreme. Whenever they need to sell a brick, they make it limited, therefore it becomes more valuable. On this matter, we have a really recent example, and hasn't been found yet, technically, which has deeply changed the Magic the Gathering market, as nothing has ever done it before. For this very special set, there is going to be the rarest Magic the Gathering card of all time, and by rarest we also mean scarce, because it is going to be a ultra rare, one-of-a-kind card. We're talking, of course, about the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth set that is released in 2023, and it has a ultra rare, one-of-a-kind card. We're talking, of course, about the One Ring, which, in a very weird twist of fate, is actually lore appropriate that there is a One Ring and is only one copy of the ring. So this card is a 1 out of 1 serialized card, following the logic of, the One Ring from the Lord of the Rings. Ironically, the temptation that it implies for humanity and for anyone that comes into contact with it applies to the real world as well, because this ring can only appear on collector boosters, which are more expensive boosters of Magic the Gathering that technically give you better and, prettier cards. It will only appear in English language boosters, and there is, I think, 3 million boosters, so the probability is very, very low. Therefore, as you can imagine, the price of this single card has going very crazy because, there's only one. Even compared to other legendary cards, this one has a single copy and is a very loved IP. So the price can go all over the place, with people offering $100,000, $500,000, or even $1 million plus, and who knows how long and how high these numbers are getting. Apart from that, you have other factors that affect, normal cards. This is also determined by Wizards of the Coast and also affects the value of a card. So, for example, in the case of the Lord of the Rings card, it is because of the IP and there is 1 of 1. But in other sets, for example, in Phyrexia All Will Be One, there is this card called Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines. And Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, is very good, both in terms of lore and playability. And it has a number of variant arts, too many maybe, if you ask me. But there is one specific art that has a way higher price than all of the other alternate variant cards. And that one is Elish Norn, Mother of Machines, art by Junji Ito, worldwide famous Japanese mangaka and horror author. As you can see on the screen, prices vary enormously, from a normal art to a special variant, just because of its author, and therefore the scarcity and the value that we want to give it. Finally, we have another branch, which is not really a branch of this, but a meta-universe by itself. That's why it wasn't included in the previous version. Magic the Gathering has grown so much over the years that it has its own value just by existing. So there are specific cards that may not be the best in terms of gaming and playability, may not have the highest importance in terms of lore, and may not be drawn by the best of artists, also may not be one of a kind like the One Ring, but they are still really important for what they mean to Magic the Gathering, and therefore they have a value that is affected by that. To properly and fully understand this and all the previous examples, let's talk numbers. As with any other market, especially the collectible market, there are a few elements that can alter everything in the blink of an eye. One of those is speculation. Speculation gives cards a value before they've been released, or we can predict situations like scarcity of ink or paper due to weather or international situations, maybe a pandemic, or collateral damages, maybe a war, something that happened, or if we want to use the example in Silicon Valley, maybe a plague of locusts are going to eat the sesame seeds, and therefore you want to invest in a very specific country so that Burger King doesn't run out of sesame seeds for their buns. Everything affects the global economy, and Magic the Gathering is not the exception. If we consider that Magic the Gathering is a parallel economy, then this economy suffers according to the word. So there is both speculation and external factors. The only thing that is not happening, at least it hasn't happened yet after 30 years of business, is the devaluation of Magic the Gathering cards as a whole. The closest that Wizards of the Coast has been to be devaluated happened just a few months ago. There was a huge, let's say, situation with the special 30th anniversary set from Magic the Gathering. Because, the company thought that it was a good idea trying to recreate the experience of opening alpha and beta boosters that they can't reprint because of the very list that they did as a promise that they can't reprint. So they did a golden version that has a different back and sell that in random boosters for $1,000. So yeah, you can imagine how that went, because Wizards of the Coast, the company that is always hunting websites that print, proxies and tokens, because proxies break the game and are not legal to play with, etc., was basically trying to sell its gamers and people a box of random proxies that you cannot play with in any format for $1,000. This, together with a series of bad decisions in the last year and something, has made the value of the company and the cards as a whole, take a dip. Those proxies, however, can change the value of the original cards because, Wizards released this thing called, as I said before, the list. And the list is a list of cards that they announced that wouldn't be reprinted. Because at the very beginning of the game, even though Wizards treated the game as a game, they reprinted some of those cards in these sets that were like a greatest hits set that they will release every year. So they will include the best cards. Collectors in the US, looking at their investment going down the drain, complain about this, and Wizards released the reserved list. That is a list that says that they are not going to reprint those cards ever again, so that the investment is protected. One of these cards is the most well-known trading card of all time, the Black Lotus. The Black Lotus is a card from the Alpha set, and its weight resides on importance within the Magic the Gathering history. Nowadays, you could say that there are more interesting cards to play with, or just with prettier art, but Black Lotus is important for a myriad of reasons. Some of them inside the game, some of them outside the game. Inside the game, Black Lotus is kind of too powerful. That's what made it one of the most sought after cards, as the other Power 9 cards are. And outside the game is because it became this symbol of Magic the Gathering, and its value just increases with time, because, well, it's very rare to get an alpha Black Lotus, because there was only so many. So you only have to spend a mere $5,000 in order to get one single Black Lotus in the lowest of conditions. $30,000 if it's near mint or almost perfect, and, well, over $500,000 if that's an alpha version Black Lotus signed by Chris Rush, the artist behind the art of the Black Lotus, the most expensive Magic the Gathering card of all time. And to the day of this video, still the most expensive trading card of all time. Knowing that some other trading card games have their own Black Lotus, such as the first edition booster version of the Blue Eyes White Dragon for Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Charizard for the Pokemon trading card game. This is, of course, a meta reason for why these cards have this value, because, well, there are some historic reasons. So they became these collectible items that have, this prestige to them. So a lot of people that don't even play the game want these items. But, it's all part of the shadow economy. It's part of speculation. It is a valuable good, like a piece of jewelry. And as you may imagine, that sort of idea with other alpha or even beta cards applies as well. All of them cards in the reserve list. However, the interesting thing about the reserve list is that technically Wizards can't print the list on the reserve list, wink, wink, but they can print them if they are in a different way. That's why they could do it in the 30th anniversary fiasco, because that was a different border and a different back. And technically, they can print them in foil because those cards were not foil before. So they can just do it. They don't do it because this is like a deposit from a bank. This is a matter of trust. The value of the economy and the game itself, to a degree, as a collectible, is on the shoulders of this reserve list. A reserve list that Wizards can just ignore whenever they want. Although some people say that in the US, that list may constitute an agreement or a contract, it is not clear until, well, that happens and someone takes Wizards to court. But the important fact still remains, which is Wizards can just make or unmake as many cards as they want and alter the market. Cards from the reserve list in particular, so alpha and even beta cards, are a different case of cards compared to modern cards, mostly because, well, no one could imagine that Magic the Gathering will be the game it is today. So, well, not much people kept those cards in perfect condition or kept them closed because, it was a card game. It's just pieces of cardboard. So the fact that there are some cards that have withstood more than 30 years in perfect condition, that makes it a, very rare item. Even if it wasn't Magic the Gathering, that applies to anything really. So it's understandable that it all spread through time and sets and everything related to the different cards. And these legendary items from this list are part of the game's identity. So you can have, playmats and deck boxes and everything with the Black Lotus or all of the Power 9 draw on them, and it's, a symbol, and its value can go up, even if a item is kind of rare because it was just given at a specific event or convention that makes that item more expensive. So in a way, this all explains why we can see the numbers, the way they are. However, modern cards have a similar thing, but not that much. For example, the already mentioned Elish Norn Junji Ito card was firstly sold at $150 and is still going strong for like $100 or 90 euros for a near mint single card. That changes through time because at the beginning of the set launch, cards are very expensive because the first people to crack those cards are the ones that set the price. And as they become more available and became democratized, you can just get them at cheaper prices because people want to sell them. Another example of this was, for example, a set that came after Phyrexia All Will Be One, that is March of the Machine. You can find Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer, and that card has a value to it that is very good, even though it's a reprint, and therefore it kind of diluted the value of the card originally. But if you get a serialized version of Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer, you can sell it for like $1,200 or even 1,500 euros on its double rainbow foil version. And yes, as you can see, since the euro is stronger than the dollar at this moment, the difference between market prices can be quite high. So, you better pick in which side of the pond you're buying your cards from time to time. Now, going back to what we were discussing a little bit ago, do you remember that one and only the One Ring card that we talk about? The card that is going to be a single card is going to be likely the most expensive card in the world, but the value is determined by people, as usual. So the card, to a person that doesn't understand the game or doesn't know what we're looking at, is just a piece of cardboard, so they're not going to care about it. Similar to the reason why some Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh cards are not that well preserved from the 30, 20 years ago, because we were kids playing with them, so they were meant to be played, just pieces of cardboard. However, everyone that understands what's on the table for this knows that this is a 1 out of 1 card. But what's the value? You can list it for any number that you want. Now that someone pays for that price, that's a different topic. That's when the market craziness comes into hand. The One Ring is a very good marketing ploy from Wizards of the Coast, because a lot of people that don't even know what Magic the Gathering is or how it's played are offering crazy bounties for the card. So it's creating this hype ball where, it's like a Willy Wonka ticket hunt. But worse, because at least there were like 6 or 7 kids that got into the factory. Here is just one card. That card may not ever be cracked. So maybe someone opens the card on the first day and the value of the boosters and the booster boxes just goes down very, very fast because no one wants to play lottery anymore because the card is already out. Maybe that card is in the hands of someone that doesn't say out loud that they have it, so we never know that the card is cracked. Maybe, and only maybe, that card will be in the hands of someone that doesn't know what the card is supposed to be worth, which is kind of unlikely because the price of collector boosters kind of implies that if you're buying a collector booster, you know what you're trying to buy because it's a very high price. It's not like a casual spend for you to make. And maybe, only maybe, someone just buys the boxes and keeps the boxes closed, never open, because there's a lot of people that do that. They play with booster boxes as if they were gold bars or stocks from the stock market. So they keep the boxes, never open them, and they just play with the value of the sealed boxes according to the cards that you may get on them. That's why a box that may have the Black Lotus is very, very expensive. Not as expensive as the Black Lotus because, well, you may not get the Black Lotus, but since you can get the Black Lotus, the value is very high. So we may never see the One Ring coming out because it may be just sitting in someone's shelf in their basement, waiting to be sold to someone that just hunts for it like years later, whenever they decide to sell that box. And how does this affect the Magic the Gathering community that is, buying everything at launch without resellers or middlemen? You may think that there is no influence from Magic the Gathering towards the shadow market or vice versa, and that this type of buyer is completely safe, but you will be surprised by the reality. Wizards of the Coast is at fault for most of this, as they normally are. Why? At this point, you might be wondering the real implication of Wizards of the Coast in the shadow market. mainly since it's all around and about its own product, and in a way, they control the number of cards produced in each set, what cards are in there, the power of said cards, etc, etc, etc. But at the same time, they don't want to say out loud that they influence that market, because it's not even their fault that that market exists. Or is it? Because, you see, one of the things that is, one of these secrets in the open is that Wizards never acknowledges the prices of the cards in the market, nor does they discuss it. However, when they release products such as a secret layer, and what is a secret layer? A secret layer is an exclusive Magic the Gathering product that has unique cards with different mechanics. Sometimes, or most of the times, they are reprints, and they have very special art or very special treatments. Sometimes they release decks, entire decks, in those secret layer products. Sometimes they are themed after a person, like this deck was made by this person, sometimes a member from Wizards of the Coast, and sometimes they are just themed after, transformations or something like that. So, you will think that if Wizards is selling you a 100-card deck for Commander made for secret layer, the price will be, a fair price, like, I don't know, $100, $8 per card or something like that, considering that they are at least 5 cards with a special treatment. However, the price is not that. They increase the price based on the cards that are inside, and people will justify it based on the value of said card. So, one of Secret Layer's latest products, and just for a second, let's ignore that Secret Layer is a way to bypass the trading card or game shops that they claim to work with, etc., because you buy cards directly from Wizards, but whatever. One of the latest products that they released was a Secret Layer Commander deck called From Cute to Brute. Since they already released another deck in the past that was, $100, everyone assumed that, well, every Commander deck is going to be $100 because it's 100 cards, $8 per card, and there's only 5 new designs or new, visually different cards, because the rest is just reprints. However, this new deck was valued at $150, and the deck was not that good mechanically. However, a lot of people were crazy about it online and were saying, well, it's worth it because the value of cards was around $300 or $350, and it actually sold out very fast. So, this is an example of Wizards kind of acknowledging the market, but like in a subtle way for their benefit. It's like, well, we're going to re-release these cards. These are reprints. You want them. It should be $100, and for us, the price of making these decks and whatever is the same, because it's just, cardboard, and the cards are already designed, because there are no new cards, it's just new art, so they have to commission the art only. But since they know the value of those cards in the market, they just put it a little bit more expensive. And people just, are like, oh, $150, well, that's cheap, because if you sell that in the market, it's actually more money, though. They don't even care about the fact that the deck is pretty bad. This happens the other way around, though. If they want to sell a product for themselves, they can actually look at the market. They will never say it out loud, of course, and just reprint a card. That will take the value of that card lower than, the price that it has currently, and they will sell a bunch of packs. That is the case of the card that we already mentioned, Ragavan Nimble Pilferer. They can also affect the market in a different way, although this way technically is not for monetary reasons. So you can say that if they do a reprint in a set that has no reason to be reprinted, because there is no story reason or anything for that card to be included there, that is because they want to sell more product, because people think it's cheaper to get the reprint through there than to the shadow market or the secondary market. If they want to sell you something very specific, like Secret Layer, they can just look at the market and triangulate the price so that you will still buy the stuff, because like, oh, it's cheaper than buying the cards myself. However, they can also just kill the prices of certain cards for the sake of the game, and that they do indirectly through bans. So Magic the Gathering is a game, first and foremost, technically, at least, last time I checked, and they have different formats, so Standard, Modern, Pioneer, Legacy, etc., etc. and the one that everyone plays, and the only one that people play, which is Commander. So Commander is not managed by Wizards of the Coast, and Commander is a casual format, so whatever. But the main format for Magic the Gathering is Standard. A Standard that has a pretty heavy rotation of 2 years, although they change it to 3 years because no one is playing it anymore because it's very expensive. And they can decide which cards are banned on Standard and Modern. Why do we care? Well, because the game shops do tournaments, and in those tournaments you play with the set cards and you can't play with the banned cards. So recently, for example, there are some cards that were very expensive, such as Fable of the Mirror Breaker and Reconair Bankbuster, and they just said, well, you know, these cards don't really work with what we're trying to do, even though technically they design stuff 2 years in advance, wink wink. So they just banned them, and therefore their price just went down like crazy because, well, there's no use for them anymore. So you may be thinking, after all this, well, we can just ignore Wizards, or Wizards of the Coast can just do and stop doing stuff, and the prices just go up and down and up and down, and no one can stop them. And that is true. That is one of the reasons why one of the most popular formats of recent years, like the last 7 years, is Commander. Commander shouldn't be affected by this, but it is, because even though it's a casual format, since it's the only format that people play, the cards that are good in Commander actually affect the format. And Wizards, looking at the fact that, well, Commander is the one thing that sells, has scattered everything towards Commander and has designed Commander-specific cards, which wasn't how the format was supposed to go. So by doing Commander-specific cards that are very good for the format, they are also influencing the market, because you want to buy those products, and if you don't buy them, then you have to buy it from the secondary market, and if you buy it from the secondary market, they're going to be expensive because you want those cards from your deck, and therefore it creates a situation where Commander, which is a format that has 100 different cards, 100 unique cards except for lands, now is more like 90 different cards, because there are like 10 cards that have to be included in every Commander deck, such as Sol Ring. Sol Ring, mind you, is one of the cards from the reserve list, which they just casually reprinted and introduced in there like it was nothing. And no one kind of cared too much because it wasn't the most expensive card or anything. So there you go. And it became, ironically, the face of Commander. But, you know, as Wizard says, if you don't like it, don't buy it and don't play the game. You don't need to buy everything. There's no need for it. So in conclusion, Magic the Gathering is a very fun game. I love Magic the Gathering. I don't necessarily love the economy and the systems around Magic the Gathering. But this is the real world, and the shadow market is a real thing and very intrinsic to the game itself. And as we saw at the beginning, Wizards has acknowledged it since almost day one in their own magazine. Even with measures to separate them both, the game and the market, and try to avoid one influencing the other, the symbiosis is such that one can't exist without the other. Everything affects the value of a card, for better or worse. So mechanics, number of prints, how much that card was sold for in the past, how many vendors have it, you know, alphas, betas, if that card has a specific art, it has specific treatment, if there is a serialized card, everything changes the value of the card. And then on top of it, you need to check if the card is actually good or not for what you're trying to play, and if anything else is changing the value of the card. So, what can we do around this? A lot of people have already found their way around this prohibited market because, well, it's a game. And yes, you know, you need to pay the designers, both the game designers and the visual designers, for all the work. And well, sometimes maybe the story people as well, but if you check the lore from like the last 5 sets, it's like, what the hell is happening there? But I digress. There are ways of going around this. Ironically, it's not Magic Arena, because Magic Arena is even more predatory with their prices than, real Magic, and you can't resell stuff. So yeah, not that one. But there is a lot of alternatives online for you to play, like Cockatrice and untap.io, etc. So if you really want to play Magic digitally with your friends and just try and experiment and stuff, you can. If you want to play physically, well, if you're going to a tournament or to a pro tour or anything, you need to buy the freaking cards, right? But if you want to play with your friends, which is normally where the fun is at, or in your local game shop with people that you trust and everyone is okay with it, just print the fucking proxies. Like, there is no reason why it should be that prohibitive. Yes, it's great to have a very rare card. I love it when I have a very rare card and it's like, oh my god, I have this version of the card, or my deck is like all pimped up with stuff. But I just want to have fun. So talk with your group. If everyone is okay with proxies and stuff, just play with proxies. Like, no one cares. However, one disclaimer, everyone needs to be okay with it, because let's be honest, if you can just proxy your entire deck or half of it, you are very likely going to have a killer deck and the game is not going to be fun to the rest of the table. So that's the most important thing here, besides markets and speculation, is having fun. So talk to your group, try to decide what's the best way of balancing it so that you don't go broke trying to buy some cards, but you also have fun with your group. And if you have fun just buying and selling Magic cards, like, as if it were the stock market, just do it as well. Where is the market going? No one knows. The values are going down, 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 but the One Ring is a very dangerous precedent that can just set the tone for future one-of-one cards that could appear in the future, or maybe not. Who knows? This is just a speculation, right? And at the end of the game, that's the name of the game. Thank you very much. See you next time. Like and subscribe. Let's go! By now, you may have realized that this video is heavily charged with a dose of foreshadowing. And there's a good reason for that. This video was supposed to come up earlier, and as we were editing it, the One Ring from The Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth was found. And it's graded. Ironically, it's graded 9 out of 10, which is kind of a joke in itself, because there is no other ring to compare it to, so the condition really doesn't matter. I mean, likely there was some scratch or something, because God knows that Wizards doesn't properly prepare their cards and packs anymore, and sometimes they even come curled from the pack itself. But it's a 9 out of 10 PSA graded One Ring card, and the person that found it, we don't know who it was yet, and we may never know, was very smart, because they contacted a lawyer to do all the handlings of this process. Now, it was confirmed by Wizards of the Coast, who published the tweet, and here is where the fun comes. Wizards, as we discussed so far, can literally make money, as they created a card that technically is now valued at $2 million, although the value is a abstract concept, because it's said that it's worth $2 million because someone said that they will pay $2 million, but unless someone actually pays that value, the card is worth the same as the other normal rings, which is at the moment of this recording like $40-50. So obviously that's not the case, and a more serious offer from an actual collecting firm is around $1 million. So that's why you can say that your car is worth $5 million. It's not until it's actually sold. So until it's actually sold, the card is theoretically worth $2 million. And this actually comes with a bunch of questions. So did Wizards just print money? Was that card even put in a pack at any point in time? Because a lot of people are doubting it. There was a conspiracy around the One Ring and other serialized ring cards being in the gift bundles that are being released almost a month later, because that way the ring will be found immediately and the prices will continue to spike up. So apparently that wasn't the case, but it is interesting that Wizards immediately confirmed the thing. So a lot of people are arguing, and with some basis to it, that maybe the card was never properly put in any pack. Now, maybe we have a video of the pack opening, we don't know. I for sure, if bought a $200, $300, or at that point $500 box of cards hoping for the One Ring, I will certainly record the process of opening it so that I can claim the legitimacy of me cracking that card. But I guess the person didn't do it, or they don't want to share it, I don't know. So what does this mean? This means Wizards can print money. We need to beware about this in the future, because they can just do this for every set. Or maybe this was the case because it was the Lord of the Rings. They have been doing serialized cards up to this point, and they have some interest. They are more expensive than others, but no one got crazy like people got with the One Ring, because it's 1 out of 1 and it's from the Lord of the Rings, which is a bigger IP than Magic the Gathering. Actually, it's such a big IP that it brought people from not Magic the Gathering circles and also collectors, because, well, that's a very valuable concept. It's technically the most valuable Magic card of all times, on top of the Black Lotus. So, and it's funny that it's not an original Magic card, so there is that. Now, there are some claims that the card technically was found in Canada, and if it was found in Canada, then Canada has a bunch of laws against that, in the sense that it's considered a lottery or gambling. So that's in the open, because apparently the Canadian government can actually claim the card and the price. So yeah, and this has brought a bunch of people to the Magic the Gathering debate, and a lot of people that never focused on the cards are now arguing that maybe, just maybe, cracking packs is the same as a loot box and or gambling. So Wizards may have brought too many eyes upon them with their greed, right? Ironically, at the same time, Wizards did a secret lair for the Lord of the Rings that has art from the the Rankin Bass animated movie, and it's only screenshots, and it's worth like $40 to $50, and it's really just screenshots of commons and uncommon cards. So Wizards is really crazy at this point. Is been driven mad by the power of the ring, as a lot of people have been. So time will tell. People say that the story of who got the ring is a nice story, so we can assume that maybe he's a humble person of humble origins, not already a millionaire that got the card because they bought like 7 million packs or something. But certainly it's something to think about. And more interestingly, the next set, Commander Masters, is coming out, and Wizards once again is going to not manipulate the price of their own stuff in regards to the market. On a final note, some people claim that this set was bad because it brought a bunch of chaos and confusion to it, because a lot of people just bought boxes, and even people that don't normally buy boxes. On the other hand, a lot of people say that this was good because a lot of boxes were bought hunting for the One Ring, and then people just dumped their cards online or in local game shops. So because of that, the singles of this set are pretty much worthless. And that's good for the game, but at the same time it's not good in general because it's artificial, since the price of boxes is high compared to the normal price, both for collector boxes and for draft and set boxes. So once again, this all comes down to, can Wizards print money, and how much can Wizards influence the market that they pretend to ignore? And the answer is, by looking at this, they can just do whatever. As long as people buy stuff and people agree with it, the value of something is that we give to it. So as long as people say, well, this is worth it, we just keep going through the ring, pun intended, and the secret shadow economy keeps getting worse and worse until a successor comes or people just stops buying new stuff altogether. That's technically how Commander got popular, and I wouldn't be surprised if like a secret Commander gets developed by the fans so that no new cards are introduced, or you just ignore Commander specific cards, because apparently that's the new thing by Wizards. So yeah, there is that.